So, I had all kinds of questions to ask you, but the backstage conversation with Sean Parker was so interesting. Maybe we ought to just start there talking about music, Facebook, social.
Yeah.
Because it turns out that you're a real music fan.
Well, I think Sean is really one of the great prophets, of our industry. I think the work that he's done over the last few years has been amazing. I mean, when John went through some of that.
It always seems to be Moses, though. He sort of kind of prophesies and goes to the edge of the promised land.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Sean is John didn't really tap into it, but I think his thoughts on identity and how our identities are shifting online is probably some of the most foremost thinking on identity. And then his work on music. I think Spotify is, it's all I use now for music, and that's a fairly rapid transformation for me. And then I think the Facebook UI on top of Spotify is incredible, where people can follow in my feed what I'm listening to and soon what I'm watching on video and what files I'm sharing, and the advancements in Open Graph, that were kind of put out at the F8 conference. I think I said this before and I got a lot of slack for saying this, but I'll say it again. I really think that Facebook is becoming certainly a vision and I think an execution of what the next generation consumer operating system is. Everything that I want in a consumer operating system, I see in Facebook.
So does that mean that you're also modeling what you're doing at Salesforce on that and trying to build that next generation business operating system?
I would like to be doing as many amazing things as Facebook is doing. When I look at Facebook, I think it is a tremendous direction for where we're going as an industry. And when you see how it runs on a tablet, like with the technology they released last week on the iPad, on a phone, on a PC, when you see the breadth of services, Facebook as a platform, the way that it onboards ISVs, all of these things really, I think, set the stage of what we should be looking at in the enterprise world. And that's why I study it very closely. And when you see how Facebook in many ways is eating the web, that we're spending probably much more time now on Facebook than on the internet, and how that is accelerating, I think it has to be something that everybody pays a lot of attention to. I think it remains the most interesting and exciting thing in our industry.
All right, well, that's kind of interesting.
And for our enterprise customers, by the way, it's extremely relevant to them because it's where their customers are going. It's how their employees are being trained on collaboration. It's how we're learning how to communicate and share, how we're learning how to build these next generation applications.
So how much do you actually take that into account in your planning process at Salesforce? Are you explicitly modeling future products, thinking about integration in any way?
We are. We made an aggressive acquisition about a year ago of a company just 3 blocks from here called Heroku. How many people here have heard of Heroku? So Heroku is probably one of the best platforms for building Facebook apps. Right from within Facebook, you can build an application and you can choose your language. You can choose Ruby on Rails, which is where it started, Java, Python, Clojure, and soon a number of other languages. And so we're making investments in our company based on this because we saw our customers like Disney, like Warner Brothers, like others were saying, not only do we want you to be a platform as a service for internal applications, what we've been talking about for years now, but help us to build our presence on the social networking sites because that's where our customers are going.
So I want to ask you about something you said at Dreamforce. You talked about you made reference to the Arab Spring, and you said there's a corporate spring, an enterprise spring. It's kind of political rhetoric. Kind of expand on that a little bit. What do you actually see the old silos of the enterprise breaking down in interesting ways? And
I do. I think that the conversation we've been having for a decade, and certainly you have been the visionary behind this, is that the 3 main forces of our industry have been the cloud and the moving to cloud computing, mobility and the shift to mobile, and the shift to social. And these 3 things together, are creating a revolution in our industry. It's when you take 3 such powerful technologies and combine them, something's going to happen, and I think it's a social revolution. And we see that, of course, in how these dictators are falling in the Middle East, and when you look around those towns, you've probably seen the photos where it says, "Thank you, Facebook."
Yeah.
And there's these Facebook logos in Tunisia, in Egypt, in all the, in Tel Aviv,
So,
in Wall
obviously-
Street. We didn't see signs that said, "Thank you, Microsoft." There was no, "Thank you, IBM." This is a pretty big shift for our industry to see that advancement.
So, though this idea, though, is of a revolution, the language is of revolution, where do you actually see that revolution happening? That would suggest that, companies are, entrenched companies are literally being overtaken, or at the very least, entrenched IT departments are literally being overtaken.
It's the fundamental empowerment of customers and employees at a level that was really never before possible. I think that customers and employees did not have as much of a voice today. It's a huge
Any specific
democratizing.
stories, though? I mean, where you see...
Well, I think that, I'll give you one. I mean, I think we saw a fairly pristine brand with Netflix. And they were having a problem, but the problem really got amplified when the CEO published his blog, and within a few hours, I don't know if you've seen the blog, there were 27,000 mostly negative comments,
Right.
and there was a very precipitous decline in the equity. In fact, the equity declined, I think, by 2/3. So they lost 2/3 of the market cap. And I think that you can make a pretty big connection between the user reaction on the social network and the equity and the product and the leadership
and the loss of subscribers.
And
it's
an acceleration, though. It's just happened so much faster.
No,
I think the same thing happened at Hewlett-Packard.
Yeah, although I will say in Reed's defense that we really take the wrong message when we punish people for trying new things. He got it. They basically said, "Okay, we heard you, we changed."
I'm not attacking or defending anybody. I'm just pointing out what happened, which was it was an acceleration.
Yeah.
And I think
you certainly could argue that Occupy Wall Street is that now.
It's being accelerated by social media, right? Everything goes faster because of social media.
Right, but that's not, I wouldn't call that an enterprise spring. That's definitely a social movement from outside, a customer
No, but
spring.
I think that you have to pay attention as a corporation in terms of what is being said about you in these social networks.
Sure.
What is the sentiment? Well, we have a customer,
so
Gatorade.
Have you guys bought any social media monitoring companies? Or
we bought a company called Radian6.
Okay, right, and that's your play in that space. A lot of people doing interesting things in that space. You continuing to focus on that?
I think it's the most exciting business opportunity for enterprise software that I've seen, and we took our Dreamforce conference. We had 46,000 people registered to attend that in the beginning of September, and that theme of that entire conference was Welcome to the Social Revolution.
Yeah.
And I believe that for our enterprise customers, my message to them is you need to embrace this at a deep level, or you will face the consequences, in probably 4 or 5 years. And one of our customers, Toyota, their CEO, came to me and said, what do we think the future of Toyota is? And we don't really know anything about cars, but I said, you have a Toyota Corolla, you have a Toyota Tacoma, you should have a car called the Toyota Friend. Okay? And you should have a Toyota Friend. And the way I came up with that was I have a Chevy Volt, and when you have an electric car or electric hybrid, you need to have more of a relationship with the car, but also even with the factory, even with the dealer, even with other drivers. That's how you get optimization with driving kind of these next generation cars. But there was really none of that technology with my Chevy Volt. So I said, if you come up with a Toyota Friend, I want to have a conversation with the car. I'm ready to drive.
How would my car, well, but it's also, I start thinking about that with things like face recognition. I did a brainstorm with Mercedes a few months ago, and it was sort of like thinking about, well, okay, you've got the Google autonomous vehicle. It's actually got the equivalent of a Kinect for face recognition, and it says, oh yeah, go over to Mark's house and pick him up. And it says, you're not Mark, you're Joe. I'm not here to pick you up.
Right.
There's kind of a very interesting science fiction future.
We're not quite at that level. in our thinking.
No, but the point of getting outside of the old thinking, I think is huge.
That's the most important thing.
So I want to
That's also my point. Also,
Yeah.
that when you said, should CEOs be thinking about these things? Yes.
Yeah.
And should you be thinking about a social car?
Yeah.
Or
in some ways, things like Zipcar and relay rides and Uber are the beginnings of social cars.
We've been doing a lot of work with Coca-Cola, and one of the major challenges that they have is they have 35 million friends on Facebook, or probably more right now, and 18 million people in their loyalty program, and and they have a lot of islands of information. But when you walk up to a Coke machine, does it know your profile on Facebook? Does it know who you are? And we said, well, actually, you could add an app, on your iPhone, and it would have some geolocation. Say, wait, I know I'm in front of a Coke machine. Oh, wait, I know this is Mark. I know this is Facebook.
Sure.
And I can give you loyalty points based on that. But we need to start making a little bit more linkage between our companies and what's going on in the social world.
Jobs and the economy. Obviously, big piece of what we do in business is create jobs. We don't just create products, we create economic opportunity.
Right.
How do you think about that? What should we be doing today in this country?
Well, I think that there's an incredible dislocation between the opportunity and those who are seeking employment, and I don't think the government is doing enough to fill that gap. I mean, you heard the conversation that I had backstage with Sean Parker. He has a new company. He's trying to hire a lot of people. He doesn't know how to find those people. That's true in my company. We're hiring very aggressively. We can't find enough people. I could probably list 100 companies that I know of who are trying to hire, and we can't find enough people. And when I go across, this great country of ours, I was in Ohio and Detroit last week. I was in Austin, Texas last week. What I see is there are a lot of people who don't, I think, completely understand or appreciate how many jobs are available, certainly in our industry.
Right.
And we need to show them what the possibility is.
There's definitely a social graph problem there, which of course Reid Hoffman is trying to solve. I wanted to say, if we have questions from the audience, we have just a few minutes left, but if you want to come up to the mics.
I'd also add, I was with a really interesting entrepreneur at dinner on Tuesday night, which was Henrik Fisker, who has this new car, Fisker Karma. He's building this factory here in the United States. He's building the cars here. He's building the factory here. We see the same thing with Tesla is building a new factory in Fremont. Right. General Electric is building a new factory, which is this thin film, solar panels on the East Coast. There's a lot of things that are going on. We need to amplify and illuminate that, and we need to help people to see what the potential is for them.
Yeah. So do we have any questions out there in the audience? Doesn't look like it. We're oh wait, is somebody coming up there? No? Okay, good. Well then we'll keep going. You said beware of the false cloud. What's the false cloud?
Well, I think the cloud in our industry, unfortunately, has become a term that means everything to everybody. But I think
somebody who says, "Oh yeah, everybody's got a cloud, so we'll have one too."
Especially in regards to virtualization, the virtualization vendors say, "Well, we're cloud computing. You can have your own private cloud." But to our customers, we have more than 100,000 companies using our services worldwide. What the cloud means is the multi-tenant architecture that is made possible by Facebook. You look at Facebook, they've got almost 1 billion users. They're doing 100 billion transactions a day. That's cloud computing. Amazon.com, that's cloud computing. eBay, that's even cloud computing to me. You just heard about the payment and transaction service. And that the web is a fabric of services that is getting stitched together to build these incredible new applications. That's not about building a virtualized, machine inside your data center and saying, I have cloud too. That virtualization is great in regards to efficiency of the server, but cloud computing, I think, is something bigger and more exciting and broader and farther reaching.
I totally agree. I mean, in some sense, everything is becoming cloud. There's a real deep trend, big data in the cloud driving all kinds of interesting applications.
And that's why I say beware of the false cloud. When I go to a conference and they'll say, well, we have cloud computing, we have platform as a service, we have software as a service, and here it is on a disk. And
So,
I
so let
You
me just throw out a couple of words at you and see what you say to them. Kind of in the style of.
do you want me to lie down for this?
No. Just
Okay.
so throw out some companies. We've talked a lot about Facebook. We'll throw out some others. Amazon.
I think
Just
that
give me a one word.
amazing.
Okay. EMC.
Disk drives.
Well,
Well, that's where I buy my disk drives.
right. Apple.
I'm extremely sad right now about that. So
Government.
I think they're very confused.
Okay. Google.
I think that's an incredible company.
HP.
I think that they're in serious trouble right now.
Oracle.
I think that they're actually a very strong company because of all the acquisitions they've made and a very good strategy.
VMware.
They just reported their results. They just had an amazing quarter. They're getting ready for $1 billion quarter. And the thing that's amazing in our industry in enterprise software, we haven't seen a new company that's come along in the last decade to create a new $1 billion quarter. So VMware, pretty incredible momentum, over 30% growth in their last quarter, or the quarter they just reported.
Pretty amazing.
Today.
What do you think about gamification?
I think that's a huge, massive next step for all of us in how we're writing software. I think the fundamental use of badging, I think the way that we are building enterprise software will probably change because of that concept. J.P. Raghaswamy on his blog, Confused of Calcutta, wrote some amazing things about gamification, and I'm bought into that.
Data. Last one.
I think it's bigger and broader. I just bumped into a friend of mine in the hall, Roger Bamford, who is the primary architect of the Oracle database, who's here at the conference. I don't think we ever expected 25 years ago when Roger was writing the Oracle database to see the amount of data that we see today and what to do with it and how to access it, manipulate it, and make sense of it and make it actionable. So we're on the threshold of a new industry with data.
All right. Well,
Tim,
we're
thank
out of
you.
time. Thank you very much,
Very good.
Mark.
Thank you.
So